Come closer. That's better. Yeah, a bit closer than that. Almost there. Right, that's about right. Yep, perfect. Relatively speaking. Why do I say relatively? Well, it's not perfection, is it? It's just relative perfection. It's ideal for this situation right now. Doesn't mean it'll be ideal in another situation. And with that in mind, I want to go back to the first man and first woman on this earth, Adam and Eve. I want to talk about why they were often known as the perfect human pair. And I challenge that because that's just relative perfection. That means that at that time, when they didn't have any outside influences, nothing to distract them, they could consider themselves perfect. But let's go back even farther than that before Eve came onto the scene. And God decided that Adam shouldn't carry on his own and create a partner for him. And this was after him observing all the animals and seeing that the animals were all paired up. And Jehovah thought in his wisdom, it's only fair that Adam should have a partner as well. But let's think about the relationship that Adam, prior to Eve turning up, let's think about that relationship that he would have had with Jehovah at that time. It would have been a one-to-one sort of father-son relationship for sure. You should imagine Jehovah was quite proud of Adam after he created him and started to instruct him on how best that he should go about his daily life. And they probably built up this unbreakable bond. I'm talking about Adam and Jehovah at this time. This was before he came on the scene. So they would have had this very, very strong bond, which would have been extremely difficult at that time for Satan to have launched an attack on Adam, because it just wouldn't have been the right time to do that. And one thing I know about Satan is he always picks the opportune time before he attacks anything that God considers to be special or a prize. Satan always picks the right opportunity to attack that person or those persons in the plural sense, meaning that there may be a group of people that Jehovah favors, and Satan doesn't like this idea that these people follow Jehovah's every letter and hang on his every word, and he wants a bit of that glory for himself. So we'll go back to the Garden of Eden. We look at the situation now where Eve is created, and Adam's sort of loyalty and everything else up until that point will start to come under a bit of strain, because he would no longer be able to devote that kind of time to having a one-to-one relationship with God, because he's got a wife now, he's taken a partner, and he would have had to have devoted time for her. So at this point now, you could say that the dynamics have changed, for sure they have, which means that the perfect man is subject to a lot more changes, a lot more compromises. Only natural, modern day man, he takes a wife and he can no longer devote time to serving God the same way as he used to. Just say he was a single brother in that congregation that he belonged to, and he was a full-time pioneer. The point in which he takes a wife, that is compromised. He has to decide whether he can continue to pioneer or whether he has to come off pioneering and go out and get a secular job and just join everybody else in life that is part of the normal structure of things. So with Adam's case, he's devoting a lot more time to Eve, and obviously he would be in love with her. And this is a good thing, because this is what God wanted in the true sense of the word. He wanted Adam to have a partner which he could cherish and procreate with. So this is a good thing, and this would have had Jehovah's blessing for sure. But now let's look at how Satan will have seen that the perfect pair were devoted to Jehovah at that time. And how Satan didn't like this, how he wanted this kind of worship for himself. But one thing that Satan didn't do, we know at this time, was to make a direct challenge for the throne. He didn't actually say that, I want your throne, Jehovah, at this point, because that would have been a direct challenge, and he would have been probably removed, destroyed there and then for it. No, he was far, far too clever for that. He decided to pick on the weak link, and the weak link at that time was Eve. Adam had already been on his own for some time, so he built up this relationship, this close bond with Jehovah. But Eve came on the scene later on. So she would be considered the weak link. And Satan would have known this. And he would have thought, if I'm going to have success with anybody, it will be with Eve. And that's exactly what he did. He looked for his opportune time. And he appealed to her vanity at the time. Made it seem as if it was quite all right for her to make her own decisions. And if she did make her own decisions, she would almost be godlike in doing so. So he appealed to her vanity. And it worked. He suckered her in. She succumbed to his wily serpent charms. And she wanted to make her own decisions. Now, this was the point now where Adam, he could have just turned around and said, I'm not being part of this. This has nothing to do with me. This is something that you decided yourself. And I'm having absolutely nothing to do with it. And had he have done that, I'm pretty sure that Jehovah would have created a new partner for Adam. Would have got him a new model, if you like. But we know that didn't happen. We know that Eve deliberately disobeyed Jehovah. We know also that Adam indirectly disobeyed Jehovah. He just chose to put the love for Eve before his love for Jehovah. And of course, in Jehovah's eyes, both these were just equal in punishment, and that is why they lost the everlasting life and were thrown out of the Garden of Eden. But at that point there, something that is occurring to our time now actually got its start. It was the onset of the issue of universal sovereignty. What do I mean? Well, it was Satan's challenge. It was almost like a wager or a bet that Satan had laid down before Jehovah. He'd more or less made it clear that man wanted to make their own decisions and they didn't need to consult God, that they could quite easily make their own decisions and just forge ahead and do quite fine without God's help. But Jehovah had said, no, that man was not capable of directing his own footsteps. And if he tried to, he would just go from one disaster to the next. And this was the start of the universal issue of sovereignty. Man's right to rule over God giving direction and guidelines. Now this, for me, is the backbone of the Bible. You take away the issue of universal sovereignty and the Bible just falls down, because the whole Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, reinforces this issue of universal sovereignty. And this issue is something that mankind can share in. That the angels alone, they cannot settle this issue of universal sovereignty on their own. It's simply because Satan had involved mankind during the Garden of Eden, that he had brought mankind into this wager or this challenge. And so it's fitting that only mankind can share in the answer. And the answer will only be provided at Armageddon. Simply because at Armageddon, there will be a group of people that will have to survive. And those people that survive will have provided this answer to Satan. They will have said that we chose to live by Bible principles and we were happy to be directed with biblical principles and guidelines, and that we weren't forced to do this. We chose to do this of our own free will. And this will be the answer that mankind will provide back to Satan. So this will also be probably the time when the wager or the bet will have been settled. That Jehovah will actually be able to finally say to Satan, I'm sorry, but you were wrong. And your time has now come to an end. Everything you said about mankind just wasn't true, because I found so many righteous people that were so happy to serve me out of a pure heart and a free will. And it's this answer that we, and I mean us, you, me, all of us, we can all send an answer back to Satan. But who those people turn out to be, the ones that will be sending this answer back to Satan, is almost like a lottery in itself. Right, I want to go back to Adam and Eve again. I know we started with them, but I want to know why a perfect human pair could go so horribly wrong. And I thought about this, and then I've also looked at what it means to be relatively perfect. And this is my viewpoint and my experience of what that means. So I think that when they were considered perfect, that was when they weren't challenged. They was in a perfect utopian environment, and there was no outside influences. So at that point, they were the perfect pair. At the point in which they were challenged, I believe that the dynamics will have changed. The environment, the situation had then altered, and that perfection that they previously were was then challenged. So that's why I only believe that perfection is relative. It's relative to the surroundings and the environment and the time at that particular frame or epoch. It's like a sound engineer who sets up a PA system in a bigger auditorium. He gets the sound perfect for that night. The bands go on, and the bands afterwards, they say, that sound, that was perfect. But it was only perfect for that time, for that particular venue. So it was relative, because had you take that same PA system and set it up somewhere else using exactly the same settings, then it would not be perfect. They would have to have done some more alterations and tweaked a few more things to gain perfection. So in Adam and Eve's case, at the point in which the serpent came along, that was when the dynamics changed. That was when they would not be expecting a wily, surreptitious type person to challenge them and to make it seem as if he was their friend, but all the time he was just trying to look for an opportunity to undo them. So they would not have had their guard up for the kickoff. They would have been too trusting, and obviously not relied on Jehovah as well. So that was also a contributing factor. So their perfection had then changed. What their once perfect pair became less than perfect at the point in which they received that challenge or that enticement or that proposed lie, which they didn't know how to deal with. So this lie that Satan uttered was the wager, it was the challenge, or it was a bet. It almost seems like Satan and Jehovah had a bet on mankind. That's how it seems to me. That Satan had said that mankind would rather make their own decisions in life, and they'd be quite happy to do that, and they'd be doing just fine by doing so. But Jehovah's side of the bet was that they wouldn't be capable of doing such a thing, that if they did try and make their own decisions, they'd go from one disaster to the next. So when is the betting slip going to be handed in? Well, it's obvious, isn't it? The betting slip, as far as the universal issue of sovereignty, will be handed in at Armageddon. Because at Armageddon, that is when there will be a group of people that will step forward. and they'll step forward from all those that will be going off to mass destruction. There will be a group of people that will be able to provide this perfect answer back to Satan and his demons. And they will be able to say, I'm sorry, but we wanted to live by Bible principles. We wanted to have Jehovah guide our every steps, and we were happy to do this. We weren't forced to do it, but we chose to do it through free will. And that's the betting slip answer, that this group of people, whoever they turn out to be, whoever they are, this is the answer that they can give back to Satan. And thus, they will then be sharing in a vindication of Jehovah's name and clear his name once and for all. And this can't be done just by the angelic forces alone. This has to be done by humankind. Both of them together will share in this vindication work, because it was that original challenge that Satan launched at mankind, and because he involved mankind, mankind has to be the one to deliver that answer, and mankind will deliver that answer, and we are getting near that answer as every day passes. Thank you very much.